Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nurturing Astrology podcast and the Seeker Seer Show. I'm Dominique, your astrologer and seeker.
And I'm Sarah, your intuitive and seer.
Awesome. Welcome back, Sarah. I'm super excited for another show with you. You can go back and listen to our beginning episodes. We have some really great episodes where you'll really learn about Sarah's gifts as an intuitive. But one thing that's really amazing and cool about Sarah is that she has a gift for communicating with animals and a real ability to connect with nature and working with specifically horses and dogs, but all of nature and animals. And so today we're going to go somewhere that like every pet owner, every animal lover is like, I think really going to enjoy. And I don't think you're going to see your pets the same after this episode. So before we dive in, Sarah, to all this like cool magic and insight, take us back to when did you first know that you could connect with animals or that your connection was like something deeper than just loving animals?
Well, when I was young, my parents decided to board horses at our place. And I remember feeling like horses knew more than me. I would just be able to be with them. And it was, in a way, they were like my protector, or my guides. I just felt really connected with them. If I got upset or scared, I would sit in the stall with them sometimes. Most parents don't tell you that's a good idea to do, but I did. Or I just wanted to be with them in the barn. And I think I felt that similar with dogs. Dogs, there was always a strong connection. I wanted to be with them. It was like they got me and they understood me regardless of what was going on.
Mm.
So I think I really leaned towards that connection, that deep connection that I had with animals because it felt like safety. And it also just felt like I could be unconditionally accepted.
Mm.
So I'm imagining like all of you, I mean, they're part of your family if you have them. They're your loyal companions. They're your friends. So it was sort of like that, but I think maybe even on a deeper level.
Oh, nice. Yeah, definitely. Animals are our people. There's definitely a lot of people who feel like animals get them more than people do, even sometimes. We have so many people have emotional support animals. So it sounds like, in a way, that's kind of what they were for you when you were young. It just felt like they got you as like emotional support, just a natural kind of thing. And just to
Yeah.
kind of like point to the astrology of this, like Sarah is built for this as well. She's a wonderful intuitive and she can help all kinds of people, but she is a Pisces and her sixth house, which rules animals and pets, is in Leo. It's ruled by Leo, which takes you to her sun, Chiron conjunction in Pisces. And she also has that 12th house, Mercury in Pisces, retrograde. So again, that kind of like sensorial connection with them. I think you're built for this. Like this is definitely feels like a specialty that stands out for you particularly. So just side note, if you are somebody who's interested in this or you sense this kind of thing, maybe you feel this connection with animals, maybe look to your sixth house and maybe a planet's there, maybe you have, Pisces there. Look to see kind of if there's an indicator, maybe that this is something, there's a reason for this, or there's a natural gift waiting to be kind of explored, right?
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. All right. So, because I think most people largely underestimate what animals actually are capable of perceiving around us, can you walk us through how you see that animals experience the world sensorially and how that fundamentally is different from us?
Yeah, I think, um, I mean, we like to think of ourselves as the most evolved species on the planet, and in some ways we are. But when it comes to sensory perception, we as humans, quite honestly, I mean, we're underwhelming.
Mm.
We're completely underwhelming. We have five senses that are relatively moderate across the board, right?
Yeah.
And while animals, I mean, depending upon the species, they've taken one or several of those senses and they've developed them to a degree that is like incomprehensible to us.
Mm.
Um, I mean, beyond that as well, they have sensory systems that we don't have an equivalent for as humans. So they're perceiving a version of the world that we literally cannot access.
Oh, wow.
Um, which to me is one of the most humbling and fascinating things about them.
Yeah.
And I think, what I find really profound about this is animals have never been told to doubt what they feel, right? So they're like here in the now, present, and they're not taught, and their societal, upbringing, I guess I would say, has not brought them to override their instincts with logic like we do, right? So they're not
Yeah.
second guessing what their body's telling them. They're just receiving. And they live in a continuous, unfiltered relationship with their senses, with their environment every single minute. That's how they are. They're not worrying about paying the bills. They're not worried about where I need to go pick up someone at school. That's not, they
Yeah.
are just literally right there, present, feeling, and sensing. And so, I mean, we used to, as animals, we used to do that too. But somewhere along the way, as a species, we basically have stepped out of that world. I mean, we created a language, civilizations, now technology, which is quite
Mm,
frightening, and basically a culture that rewards intellect over instinct.
that's true.
We've built, walls between ourselves and our own sensory capacity. And what I find so amazing is that our pets and all animals are still living that original world. And when we were with them, like really connected to them, when you're quiet with your animal, be it a horse, a cat, a dog, a bird, they can actually pull us back into that. They can show this to us in ourselves, I believe.
Ooh, that's cool. So the image I got when you were describing at first their presence and all of that was of babies. Do you feel like there's a connection like babies, when they come into the world, they are so sensorial. They are still connected even to like spirit world more, that's what popped in my mind was like they're like babies. They're present, they're feeling everything. They're sensorial. They're kind of still almost living between worlds as they're making their way in and they still have like a connection to where they've come from, whatever, right?
Mhm,
So that's
mhm.
what first came to me. And then I think you're absolutely right that the development of language and technology and all these things, the advances are cool, but that also is what's been taking us more and more away from our natural gifts of intuition and being
Yes,
able to sense the world
absolutely.
ourselves.
It's
That
interesting
makes
you
sense.
say that because if you think to even back to when you were young, like your very first memories, you weren't worried about the things you're worried about as an adult. We all know that. Like we're like, oh, I wish I was like, six again,
Yeah.
right? Some people. Um, but I mean, that maybe that's why that connection at such a young age, having that opportunity to be with animals at such a young age for me, really made me understand and
Mm.
connect to that sensory part because it was something where I didn't have other things to distract me. So I was able to just be with them, be present, and sort of almost emanate what they did, right? And how
Oh
they
yeah.
functioned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's another reason why maybe having, a pet when you have a child and they're young, having them have a pet, a family pet is so like beneficial for
Yeah.
the family and for the children. I think that's another kind of plug for the beauty of bringing a pet into a family when
Yeah.
children are young.
Yeah.
Our dog Sparky we got right when Joe was like 2, and so he's grown up with him. They have a little bond. They have a little, you know what I
Right.
mean? It's pretty cool. So, okay, so why don't you give us a few examples of this because I think that people would be like really interested in actually understanding how extraordinary this actually is.
So I have a connection with, I mean, I've had a connection with all animals that I've come in contact with, but I've particularly been focused on horses and dogs because that's just, who's been in my life the most. But we'll go with horses first as an example. So, I mean, horses have it on their skin. They are so sensitive. They can flick away a single fly and feel it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can actually, their sensory system is really refined in terms of their body. But also what makes them really extraordinary is they don't just detect like our heartbeat, they actually synchronize to it. It's been proven, studies have shown that they
Wow.
mirror the human's nervous system instantly. They literally feel our emotional shifts through our heart rate. So if somebody's anxious or upset when they walk into a barn, the horse knows it before you even said a word or you've moved. Like they are onto it. And I look back at history. I mean, let's just for a second step aside. And I mean, horses have been beside man since way, 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 way back, hundreds and hundreds
Yeah.
and probably thousands of years, right? So, they've walked into war with man. They have
Yeah.
been literally by our side. So all of this it's not magic, it's biology, but it's also, I think, a built connection between the species, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to maybe if you look at a marine mammal like a dolphin, it's going to be quite different because they haven't had that contact with humans at the same, in the same way.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe similar in an aquarium, but not in the same way that, say, horses have over just generations and generations and thousands of years. And similarly, dogs. I mean, dogs are man's best friend, right?
Yep.
They have an olfactory capacity of 10 to 100,000 times. We don't even really know, stronger than humans.
Wow.
So that means that their sense of smell, and they're saying it's more than smell now. It's actually just coming out now that it's actually more than smell, but we call it smell. They can smell disease, fear, emotional shifts in people, changes in blood sugar. They can sense
Wow.
whether somebody's ill. They can actually detect cancer. I mean, it's amazing. So they can sense a human heartbeat up to as far as 15 feet away. So they're already
Wow.
tuned into us, and they feel us before we even enter a room. So, if you're there and you're like, how does my dog know? Well, believe me, they're onto you before you're even in the realm. So, yeah, those are just a couple examples.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. And like dogs were always on farms, they herd animals, like they were
Mhm.
part of the family. And they almost, the reason why, and I think this is an interesting connection too, a lot of people don't understand exactly why animals and pets are associated with the sixth house. And part of it is the reason that you just described is because they were working, they were service animals.
Ah,
And the sixth
interesting.
house is the house of service. So, horses were of service. They got guys, the guys where they needed to go. And the dogs and stuff were of service on the farm and things like that. So they were service animals before they were domesticated pets.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Absolutely.
that's the origin of why the sixth house represents pets. They kind of lump it in there, but it's like service animals really more than anything. A lot of people might even say that the third house is pets because it's like our friends, because pets are become like our friends in our family. So you could look to third, fourth house for even that, but the sixth house is service animals, and that's why it got lumped into the sixth house.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so here's what I want to know now. So I think that the audience is kind of like wondering this too. Maybe, I don't know if you are. I am. If these animals are all like sensing all of this like so intensely, what are they picking up from us that we don't even like realize we're broadcasting or emanating?
I think they're picking it up from so many different senses. I mean, they're smelling, they can smell fear, I'm sure.
Oh
Even,
yeah.
even intuitives like myself, I didn't mention it in the last video, but I mean, there is the sense of through intuition, you can smell, and I have that.
Oh yeah, that's
Uh,
right. Hmm.
but animals, I think they're reading our energy fields. They can read our emotions. They can like are in any intention we have. They're constantly tuning in, and they're not really responding to what we are. It's just I mean, they are responding to what we are, but they're not responding to what we say. So
Oh yeah.
basically,
Hmm.
yeah, they're looking at, what we are in the sense of what are we putting out, right? So what are we feeling? And it was the same thing we talked about in the last episode. You walk into a room and you're like, what happened here? And you find out somebody had been in a fight right before you walked in the room. That's what they're
Mm,
tuning into. That they're tuning into that instinctual, just energetic field,
yeah.
and all of their olfactory, which we cannot even access, even a bit of that as humans,
Yeah.
it is constantly sensing and pinging that. So it's not necessarily just what we say. It
Yeah.
really is
Sorry,
about,
energy.
it's an energy. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's when you say the energy and the words, right? It's not what we say, it's how we say it. And it's very true that when you can use any word to have your dog do something. It's really about the inflection of your tone or your voice, whether it's, wanting a command, or something you're like you could make a little noise, if you want them to come to you. It's like like if it's like a high pitch, it
Yeah.
might they bring them closer, or if it's a lower pitch, it might oh, you know what I mean? Like, what are they asking me to do? So I do think you can use different words for commands, that depending on how you say it, the dog or the cat or the animal is going to sense the energy of that rather than the word. They're not really understanding what you're saying. When
No, that's
we have
true.
our
And I have a really good example of that is my very first Rhodesian Ridgeback I got when I was in Africa. He came and he already knew Afrikaans and English. And
oh,
when he arrived, we were living in a place where there was two local languages plus French, and then we spoke English. So he basically, then we moved and he learned Swahili. But he knew seven languages. He could do all of his commands in any one of
okay.
the seven languages. And it
Okay,
was
so it's
really,
energetics, not language. Or are you saying that he knew languages?
that's the question. Like I don't know if people have determined that, but he knew seven languages. He could do sit, lie down, come, all those things in seven languages. And I think a lot of it is also it's
Mm,
our intention. So
yeah.
what is that intention? What is the energy we're putting out? And they react to it.
Yeah.
So it has been proven they know language because there's a whole system of buttons that people use for their dogs to be able to quote unquote speak. But, is it the
Oh,
placement of the
yeah.
button that means something or is it the actual word? That we don't know, right?
Gotcha.
So I
Yeah,
think
that
that's
makes sense.
something that's being studied right now, and I could be behind the science. Maybe people do know, and if you do, please chime in. But
Yeah, right. If you're an expert in this area, do
it is
tell.
about the energy for sure, and it's definitely about our intention. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure everybody kind of has a story of this of their own, maybe something they've experienced with their animal, that made them kind of stop and think, wait a minute, like, do they understand what I just said? Or are they just sensing something? Like, how did they know that? Or when the dogs start acting really weird, and it's usually before something happens, either a storm, sometimes an earthquake. They say that animals sense those things first. The horses go crazy, and then all of a sudden a storm comes, or, here, dogs go nuts, earthquakes may be coming. I actually get a little nervous if they're acting a little up or a little weird and there's no other real explanation for it. I start to, okay, are we prepared in case something happens? Because I do live in California, right? So those are kind of some things that are popping into my head. They say that animals can sense things before they happen as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're not really acting out per se, like they're not misbehaving.
Yeah,
I think they're reading something we can't see. And
yeah.
I actually have been in a situation. I was along a river once in Congo, which when Mount Cameroon blew up, we had a big earthquake, and it was so strange because everything got silent. It was like in the forest where it's normally lots of noises, and everything was silent. And then all of a sudden, the fish started jumping in the river. And I'm like, what's going on? And they felt it way before we do because they can feel that vibration. They just have that sensory ability that's so much higher than what we have, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think the sensory ability that's popping up in my mind is obviously like Neptune and Pisces vibes
Yes.
directly. Like they're just, they're connected to the invisible world and feeling and perceiving things that, like, naturally, that maybe as humans we have to work a little harder to tune into because of all these other advances and things in our environment. I know a lot of people actually look at their dogs' charts if they're an astrologer. Like, I know people are really into that and they know actually the chart of their pet. And it's true. They do have personalities too, and that chart does work for them. I know my
Oh
my
yeah.
dog is a Scorpio, and he is a Scorpio. He is obsessive. He is obsessed with me. He is protective, and he's even like a little obsessive compulsive outside at the door like this sometimes when he was come back in. My one dog, the lab, just sits there, and the little one is going like this. So I don't know our lab's chart because we kind of took him in, but I do know the other one. So I know people are really into the astrology of their pet. So if you know this, you could definitely get a little insight into this and maybe look to the Pisces house or where Pisces or Neptune is. And I mean, are some pets more intuitive or sensitive than others? Or is this like across the board? This is all animals, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So that
Looking at
means
all
that
things.
there's a million and one ways you could probably see that in a chart.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's a good way of kind of breaking us out of getting locked into any one thing or placement or expression in astrology, because it can be many things and many places. So that's, I think, a good reminder to not get locked into the astrology of what you're seeing or any one meaning around anything. There's a million and one ways something can actually show up. But if
Yeah.
you're someone who's into astrology for your pets, I bet you could learn some fun stuff, you know?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so we've talked about individual animals, right? So what about how animals work together? Because some of what happens in nature, it's almost like kind of impossible to explain logically, but yet I know there's science behind it. So can you talk about this? Because I know you have a lot of things you want to share in this realm as well as how animals actually work together this way.
Yeah, I think part of it was my life abroad working in
Ah,
wildlife conservation, and part of it is also just looking at herds of animals, working with horses, that kind of thing. But
yeah.
if you look at what we call like collective animal intelligence, right? Um, some really good examples of this would be like murmurations of starlings. I don't know if you've ever seen one, like a
Mm.
whole group of starlings will move or fly in like they're like one
Yeah.
fluid organism.
Oh, yeah, I
It's
love
like
that.
it's in perfection, and
It's
there's no leader,
beautiful.
there's no collisions. I mean, you sort of want to go out and be like, did everybody make it? But it's just this pure energetic attunement. And it's the same thing as mackerel in the ocean. If you've ever
Hmm.
watched mackerel in the ocean, they do that same movement. That is just an energetic attunement where they're completely in vibe with each other. And
Yeah.
they have even like their distances between each other it's always kept at this certain distance. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, Another really good example would be like geese in a V formation is a really good one. So
Yep.
when they fly in a V formation, we're always like, why do they fly in a V formation? But every
Yeah.
goose is constantly sensing the air currents and the wing vibrations of the birds around it. So it is actually scientists have proven that it's seven birds out can feel from one bird. So you have this constant overlap of energy going down the V, keeping them in exact sync, right?
Wow.
It's constantly adjusting in real time and connecting and synchronizing them and their wing beats so that they don't like run into each other. There's no this isn't accidental.
Fascinating.
It's extraordinarily precise. And it has been proven that flying in the formation like this, it allows them to increase their range by up to 70% compared to flying alone because they can use each other's energy moving forward. And they
Hmm.
also can maintain it across hundreds of miles of a single flight. I mean, this is like without a GPS, right?
Yeah, that
There's
too.
like there's no leader in terms of barking orders, there's the guy out front, right? He or she is in the top of the V, but it's pure collective sensing, and
Wow.
I mean, honestly, it makes our Wi-Fi look pretty unimpressive. But let's see. Another example would be herd animals, like I mentioned, working with horses. And this is emerging in research, which has been supporting this, is herd animals come together, their collective sensory awareness, it doesn't just add up. It actually
Hmm.
multiplies, it
Oh,
amplifies. So if you think about each energy field getting together, you think, oh, that's like a lot of energy fields, but it's actually becomes like one huge energy field that then has bigger power, right? So it's
uh-huh.
amplified. And research has shown that it's this, what they call collective vigilance. It increases with group size, obviously, but also it creates a detection system that's like far more powerful. So the intensity of what they're able to detect is much more, and that's much more far reaching for than any single animal could do alone, right?
Yeah.
So it's called collective detection, and it's basically a shared energy field. So they have learned to work together in a shared energy field, one that extends further. It like perceives more, it responds faster than anything any one of them could do solo, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, it's in nature, I think it's like a living, breathing early warning system, right? And it works. And I mean,
Yeah.
I think these examples are ways that it's just nature's baffling, as we all know. You can get into it, but the perfection of it is really quite amazing.
That's fascinating. Yeah, the thing that's coming to me is how people are talking about, we're evolving as humanity and as a collective. So, do you feel like the more people wake up or consciousness rises within us that this is the kind of like unified field we all like we can start sensing that or creating that as humans. And I did you hear
And
the
there's a
dogs?
dog.
Yeah, there's a dog. Do you feel like that humans are evolving in a way that they can start actually reconnecting to this unified field and help evolve humanity? Like this is kind of the way, and maybe that's why a lot of elders and cultures are like, and a lot of spiritual teachers like, we need to connect to nature and animals because that is our guide. They are our guide back to ourselves, back to, unity, consciousness, which is Pisces, which is, all of our connection. So do you feel like this is one of the calls for why nature is so important for us to reconnect with for our own evolution as humans?
I mean, I think if we look back at indigenous cultures, and I've spent time with indigenous cultures in my life, but they are connected automatically to nature, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we just look at Native Americans even. The connection to culture is far beyond that of what we normally experience. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that connection gives them a heightened sense. I think that they have an instinctual intuition, you could call it, but an instinctual connection to what's going on in the world that many of us have let go and have started to question. So I think yes. And I also think that with AI, a lot of our mental
Mm-hmm.
work that we've had to do is going to be taken away. And I think that as that happens, and it's not going to maybe happen in our generation, but in generations to come, I do feel like the intuition is going to become much more important and that, community is going to become much more important. And how we connect with
Yeah.
each other is going to be our way of how we survive, which right now we've become very, very siloed. And I think that is something that is being broken down. And it's going to take,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably going to take Pluto through Aquarius to get us there.
Yeah,
But
I know.
but I think that's where we're going. I think I do feel that
Yeah.
that's where we're going. And I don't have a scientific basis for that, but it just seems to make sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think it does make sense astrologically as well when you do talk about Pluto and Aquarius and the way that we connect and sort of like the dangers and the benefits of technology evolving so quickly with the trine to Uranus and Gemini, which we were maybe going to do a whole episode on. But the idea that those advances, there's a lot of fear around what that will do or what that will take away from us. But there's also, if we do try and look at it from a broader perspective, it could be one of the liberating factors for humans in terms of how we evolve as a species, as a collective, and then create an actual better environment. It's like because so many people are on their like drill down on what they have to do to survive, like as a human, you're disconnected with your intuition, with your soul, with your your energetic self. And that's why so much I think of the spiritual world is like trying to get people or are trying to get people to sort of drop into this more. But also we're all talking about it ever since we started talking about this. I have seen so many shows and so many conversations around this kind of idea of us reconnecting with our intuition. And there's a reason why it's felt in the collective, because it is something that we're all being called to do for our greater well-being,
Mhm.
And so that leads me to like, what does this mean for us? Like, what do you actually see? Like, what is this actually teaching us? And what can animals really teach us about our own intuition? Maybe it's like a remembering. That's what I'm kind of sensing.
Yeah, I think it's a remembering, and I think animals model presence, like I was saying earlier. They're never anywhere
Yes.
but here and in the now, right? So that's something
Uh-huh.
we're
The
not very
power
good at.
of now.
We're
The
not very
book.
good at it. There's a lot of books on it, but
Yep. So
but
true.
that's something that animals are excellent at, and they don't second guess their instincts. Like I've said several times, like
Yep.
they don't have a chance to talk themselves out of what they feel, right?
Yeah.
So being around animals can actually show us how we're reacting and how we're
Hmm.
also felt in the world. Because if you watch your animal, if you're really upset and you watch your animal's not going to be sitting there calmly just taking it in. They're going to show us, they're going to
Yeah.
reflect back to us our nervous system responses. And they do
Yes.
that all the time. It's just a matter of being aware of it. And
Yes.
whether we're aware of it or not, it's happening. So, just
Hmm.
keep an eye out. Like, what is your animal showing you? And in turn, I mean, I think they help us to recalibrate our inner state and like reopen our own intuitive channels,
Yep.
right? I think, I mean, I think it's really important to remember that we are animals.
Yep.
We are just another species on this planet, just like every other species that we've discussed today. I mean, we're wired for intuitive perception, for sensory
Yeah.
perception.
Yeah.
And it's not like a gift that's bestowed on a chosen few. I mean, it's biology. It's every person's birthright.
Absolutely.
And the only difference between us and a herd animal or any of the others is, that senses danger before it arrives is, or a dog that knows before you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that somewhere along the way, we were taught to doubt it.
Yep.
And we learned to live in our heads. And in doing so, we have like dimmed out the volume of everything else. We've dimmed out
Yep.
that capacity to access that information, which is key. And that information, which is our intuition. And also even, we have instinctual fear, but like, do we even ask where that's coming from, right? So I think
Yeah.
where it gets really important is what we mentioned before is as AI and technology move into the front seat and like how we process information and navigate the world as we move into this next phase, our intuition and our ability to feel and to sense and to know beyond the data.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the most profound for like human capacity that we have left is our intuition, really. I think we're
Yeah.
going to start to feel that. We're going to start to feel that that is what we have to rely on, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I mean, animals have never outsourced it, and we shouldn't either. But I think
Yep.
really, as you said, it's a growing, I think, interest for humanity. There are more people accepting and listening to it. And I always sort of I get uncomfortable when people don't accept it because I'm like, how can you not accept intuition when we are just another species and all these animals have it and you every day we know they're using it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
look at sniffer dogs and their capacity. It's phenomenal. They
Mm-hmm.
are using their intuition and their sensory input their entire time. And
Yeah.
that's nothing different than who we are. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a matter of us being able to accept it and not go into the mental realms, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That it's all about getting out of the head. That's the
Yeah.
work, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that the sitting and, being with your pet, like just that, again, bringing back that emotional support animal, but really just sitting down. I know when you meditate, when we sit quietly, the pet, usually comes and wants to be close to you because they're like,
Yes.
yes, you're in this state. I like this state. This is where we need to be.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. And that's something that we can learn from our animals, from our pets, and from nature. And again, the idea of intuition and AI is like that's the one thing people are reminding us about AI is that it cannot replace that, but it
Correct.
can offload maybe some, workload or things that occupy your mind constantly that then free up a little space for things to quiet, for you to drop in. And so I do think there's a balance here of what can be possible for us with these advances in technology and what we should be aware of in terms of how to navigate and use them consciously and for our benefit, not for again outsourcing our intuition, which I don't, I think that's the point here. So
Yeah.
I love this conversation and I love the broad look of about what animals can teach us about our intuition. So what I would love for anyone to kind of like drop their stories or thoughts about that in the comments. And I think what I'd love to go into on the next episode, Sarah, is kind of like more about pet animal communication and the intuitive connection and like the work that you actually do.
Okay. That sounds fun.
So stay tuned for that episode next and thanks for being here. Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
See you next time.
Bye.
Before we say goodbye, if something we've said has sparked a question, a memory, or you simply want to know more, that's exactly why we're here. Share it in the comments. And if you would prefer some one-on-one support, Sarah works with clients in intuitive and astrological readings, animal communication, and life coaching.
And Dominique offers astrological readings, mentorship, and teaching. Look below for links to book your session now. And if you like what we're doing, please help us grow. Share this video, subscribe, like, and help us build something fun, expansive, and helpful to navigate these wild times. We could all use it.
Until next time, keep seeking,
keep seeing, and keep trusting what you already know.
Thanks, friends. See you on the next episode.